All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. It's your host, John Abbas here. And first and foremost, I want to apologize. I have not released a new episode in the last 2 weeks. Had a little bit of issue while I was in Cancun. My plan was to release the episode while I was there, but my service was worse than I anticipated. So I had no choice but to wait until I got back. In other news, I'm actually recording in my new office. We just got the shelves built while I was gone. So I'm excited that it's not just a plain wall in the background. But nonetheless, I'm just very, very excited that you guys are here today. If this is your first time listening, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you get value out of today's interview, which I know you will, do me a favor, just hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every week when I have just an awesome, brilliant guest on the podcast, sharing all of their wisdom and all of their knowledge. If you are a return listener, I just want to say thank you for being on this show and on this journey with me. You are the reason that I do what I do. Now, today's guest is a little different than most guests that I've had on. Austin Peckham is a close friend of mine, and he's someone that I personally watched create massive success very quickly with his wife. A few years ago, he was my neighbor. We both lived in the same apartment complex. And at that time, me and Kat, my wife, we were starting over, but him and his wife were just getting started. They were in their very early 20s. He was doing some freelance video work. He just taught himself how to use a camera, and he was doing a little bit of freelance work here and there. And his wife was studying to get her real estate license. Now, here's where this gets crazy. Fast forward 3 years, he's made a massive name for himself as a director for music videos for several major artists, including Kane, which is one of the biggest gospel groups in the country. I'm really actually grateful because I got to be in one of their music videos. Austin called me and, we're close friends, and I got to be in one of their videos. I'm not going to tell you which one, but you might be able to find me on there. But it's just crazy, like watching him in just 3 years' time lead these huge teams of just producers and extras and directors of photography. And it was just incredible. Now, his wife, she is now one of the top realtors in the country. They own several rental properties all over Nashville, and they've become self-made millionaires. And I watched this happen. And what's even crazier than that is they have such a strong passive income that he's now focusing on his passion, which is becoming a professional golfer. Now, in this interview, we just have a conversation, and I want you to listen to it because I ask him all of the questions that I would truly want to learn from someone who was broke 4 years ago, taught themselves from YouTube a valuable skill, how to use a camera, and from that skill, being able to build such a great business and be in so much demand that he has to turn down work every single day. I truly hope you enjoy this interview from one of the most talented and humble people that I know. Actually, I know you're going to enjoy this interview. So sit back, relax, and please help me welcome Austin Peckham. Austin, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad to have you on. Been looking forward to this interview for a little while now. Well, a long time now. And we are finally here, and you are in your custom, what is it? A she cave?
So I guess it would be called a she shed, but
she shed.
It's a bar that we built for my wife in our backyard inside of a shed.
Yeah, super cool. You built that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But for those listening, this is out of our normal sequence of podcast episodes. I really wanted to focus, Austin, on a local success series, not necessarily just local to Nashville, even though you are here locally, but really I wanted to highlight people that have done and built incredible things very quickly. And because there's, a lot of people right now that are looking to do something, make a move. They're trying to figure out how they can build success or create financial freedom. And, the entire time there are people all over the place doing it very quickly and who are in a situation similar to the ones that are listening, wandering, just a few years ago. And so I'm particularly excited about this because, so for those of you guys listening, a few years ago, my wife and we lived in an apartment. And Austin, you and your wife were our neighbors. And we got to know you guys. And, we obviously clicked because, we were entrepreneurs at heart. You guys were entrepreneurs at heart. But man, like at that time, like what were you and Emily doing at that time when you first moved, when we were at the apartment? She wasn't a realtor yet, I don't think.
Yeah, she was either studying. It was right after we got married, but she was either studying for her real estate license, or she was like fresh into the business, one of those two. And I was kind of just getting started in the video world, but then I had a little bit of an artist thing going. So I had to trade with that apartment community to play like 1 or 2 times a month in the lobby. And then I hosted a couple events, and then I ran their social media and everything.
And what were you doing full time at that time?
That was
it.
Because, being freshly married, our rent was $19.50, and that equates to being like almost $24,000 over a course of 12 months. So for us, like being able to make a little bit of money outside of having to like pay to live was like a dream. So we were able to pay our biggest expense by me just kind of like playing music and helping that apartment community out.
At the apartments. So get this, everybody listening. This was what, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. Emily gets her real estate license. She goes on and just slaughters it, and well-deserved. I mean, her second year, she probably made almost $1 million. I mean, it's ridiculous what you guys did. And then you, who we're going to talk about today, you get a fucking video camera, you teach yourself how to record videos, and then go on to have a ton of success. And you're leaving that to pursue professional golf. So like you are just like, you blow me away kind of, because I'm just like, okay, how does this dude who gets his degree in like nutrition and exercise science, who's also a great musician, picks up a video camera, and then just has an unbelievable talent for it, where musicians all over the place are begging you to do their music videos. You get the lead singer of Rascal Flatts to invest in your business, and then now you're pursuing professional golf, and you've had success at every single one of these things. It's not like you just like, oh, I don't want to do that, and you just don't try it. Like you crush it on your way to your passion. So we're going to package all of that, because there's the people listening, and the purpose of this episode is to get people to understand that like now is the best time in the world to have success at anything. You just stop making excuses, you learn, you make moves, you do things. And so let's get into your story a little bit, man. So you started in college, because how old are you right now?
27. Yeah.
Done all this crap and you're 27 years old. So let's start from early on with your degree.
Like a super fast recap. So I studied food and nutrition in school and have a bachelor's degree in that. And a few months out from graduation, I was talking to my mom, and I had played the local bars around town for money, like acoustic little shows when I was in school. And I also ran a commercial kitchen that was a food prep company. So that was like my job. And then that's how I made money in school. And I told my mom, I was like, hey, I think that I'm going to move to Nashville and try to be an artist. People tell me that I'm good at singing, and there's never going to be a time in my life where I can do this again. So I dropped my degree, dropped everything, moved to Nashville, lined up a job at Anytime Fitness as the personal fitness or personal training director. So I was like the manager over the team of personal trainers. And I was there for maybe 4 days. And I realized that it wasn't for me. So I'd only been at the job for like a week and a half before my last day, and had like, I think $5,000 to my name or something, which is more than a lot of people had. But coming out of school, I mean, $5,000 when you're living in Nashville as a single, it'll last you 5 months, maybe max.
Yep.
So I had a camera that was it was a Nikon D5500, and it was worth probably $200. So I started meeting these artist friends when I would play around Nashville, and I would invite them over and I would shoot little acoustic videos for them in the house I was living in. And friends told friends, and other friends told other friends. And then I migrated from shooting videos inside of my house to like out on the driveway and in the street of our neighborhood. And then I got a call one day from a guy named Davis, and he was like, "Hey, do you care if I connect you with this girl from Universal Music?" I was like, "Well, yeah, for sure." So I get an email, and it's this girl from Universal, and she wants me to come into the studio at Ocean Way, which is an incredibly famous studio in Nashville, to shoot a like a video thing for Glenn Campbell's last album before he died from Alzheimer's. And Glenn Campbell is a legend in the country world. The album was called Adios. So I went in there, shot some stuff. It came out on Rolling Stone, New York Times, the Washington Post, and I saw this stuff that I did being displayed in these like giant forums, and I was just like, holy crap, this is crazy. So I made $3,000 on that job, and that was like I was making like $50 every time I shot a video for someone. I made $3,000 on that job, and I immediately went to Best Buy, bought a new camera, and then booked my first music video. And it was for a girl named Kelsey K. So we shot that. It got sent to CMT, premiered on CMT, and I'm sitting in my house and I'm just like, all right, dude, so you have shot all these videos. People like what you're doing. You have these publications that think that your work is good enough to put on their websites and stuff and play on TV. Maybe you should do this. So I came up with the name Create Nash.
Now, I want to just interrupt you for a second. Now, for those listening, I want to quash the thing that they're like, oh man, Austin just looks at a camera and he's amazing. And he just looks at this and would you say you're naturally talented, like God's gift, or did you have to work hard to get good? I mean, you shot a lot of videos in living rooms and driveways. Like, how did you teach yourself what to do, how to do it? How did you improve, and how did you improve very quickly?
So I think that I came from a line of creative people.
Yep.
My mom was creative. My dad's an engineer. All my sisters are creative. So we have a creative family. And when I was younger, I had the original iPhone, and I would run around and I would take photos like around my house and stuff like that. So I kind of always had like a thing for taking photos.
Yep.
But I never really thought it was anything good or professional. But what, like my stuff, it's embarrassing. The first things that I shot. I mean, they're so bad. And the fact that like people thought that they were good is just crazy to me. But I guess it's all relative, because I just continued to shoot and shoot and shoot, and I did so much for free. To just practice.
That's a valuable lesson right there. You did a lot for free. You just practiced, you honed your craft. I think a lot of people miss that, right? Like the work that has to be put in. You can be the most creative person in the world, but it's like what they say, right? The graveyard is the richest place in the world, right? Like all the ideas that could have been, all the businesses that could have been started. So, coming from a creative family and taking some iPhone photos doesn't mean shit, really. But the fact that you really pursued that, and man, that's really cool. So let's go continue on. So you're shooting these music videos, you're getting some recognition, and then you have this idea for Create Nash. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in my house. It's probably like midnight or 1 a.m. And this was during a time in my life where I would stay up until like 4 or 5 a.m. every night, just editing stuff, trying to produce music, just constantly like trying to create things.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there one night and I decided I'm going to start this company. And by company, I mean, I'm going to put a name to what I'm doing. I don't have any like goals or have any idea what it might become. So I get on the Tennessee business name search and type in Create Nash, thinking like this is a town that's been creating stuff for hundreds of years. How could there's no way this is available? So I hit search, it's available, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I bought it. I went to GoDaddy, searched createnash.com. It was available. I was like, okay, buy that. And then went to Instagram, Create Nash, available, got it. Facebook, Create Nash, available, got it.
Dude, that's like wine.com somehow miraculously has not been taken. That's insane.
So that was, I mean, ultimately what I learned after going through what I did the last year and a half, which we'll talk about, the name was really just something that was cool. But it was a cool start for me, and it was a buzzword that kind of let me enter some doors and be a little bit bigger than what I actually was.
Gotcha. Now, so Create Nash, what exactly was it? What happened, and who did you partner up with for that?
So I started it in 2018, I think, and basically just operated as Austin. Worked with almost 100 different artists, and over the like 2.5 years that I had owned it personally. And we worked with just a ton of different people, started to kind of dive into the business world in the back half of it. But a lot of music videos, a lot of going to Broadway in the beginning and shooting people's live music sets. Really, I was almost doing anything that involved video in the Nashville area.
Gotcha. Where did you learn how to manage crews? Because for just a little bit of backstory, so you shot a music video recently, and I got to be an extra in the video. And it was really cool. And dude, you had a big team. I mean, you're managing all of these people across all kinds of different, aspects of shooting a music video, from lighting to staging to, I mean, it was really crazy. And I think that's where I was really most impressed, because like I knew you and Emily were doing well. And for those listening, guys, I mentioned earlier where you guys were 4 years ago, but man, now you guys are crushing it. You guys have rental properties all over the place. You're building businesses. You guys are just like, to see where you came from to where you are now in 4 years, that alone is inspiration for anybody. But I think where I was most impressed is I'm just like, man, I just knew you really as my neighbor in an apartment, and I'm here on this music video a couple hours from here, and you're managing this gigantic crew. It's your company. They sought you out, gave you, and you're just making all this magic happen. And I'm like, man, where did you learn how to do this?
It's insane. And like that day in particular was just a really cool one for me, because it was a really God ordained moment. And it really just came with time. Like I didn't always have crews of that many people. I mean, it started as just me, and then it turned into me and a helper, and then it turned into me, a helper, and a lighting guy, and then it turned into, I could sit here and name like all the different names, but it turns into this big production. And like it was scary at first. You start to become responsible for a lot of different people. And, I've even wrestled with, as we're going to talk about, as kind of like me leaving the industry a little bit. I've even wrestled with all the people that I've been able to support over the last 2 years, like all my go-to crew members. Like it went from something scary to something that I loved and had the most fun doing, and being able to provide income and jobs for people consistently was definitely the best thing that I had taken from it. But yeah, I mean, managing the crews was just something that I kind of learned as I went.
Now, as a creative, is it a difficult transition for you anyway? Like having to like enter the world on the business side of things? Because a lot of creative people hate business. A lot of business people aren't creative. To have to start in one place and then work your way toward the other, which is naturally going to happen as you grow. Like, was that hard?
It was really difficult, but not so much in the ways that you would think. Um, I personally believe that business doesn't have to be done the way that everyone else does it.
It's good.
I think one of the biggest, and I don't really want to like talk negatively about what happened with the investing of my company, because it wasn't a good experience. But the biggest thing that I can pull from it is that we had people merging from different worlds that had different beliefs, different values, and it just didn't align properly with how I wanted to run a business and treat people. Um, you know, I think a lot of straight up business people, that's all they think about is business, money, getting people in and out. How can we get to $1 million? How can we get to 5 million, 10 million,
Yep.
whatever it is. And I think as a creative, you might have a little bit more of a soft spot for people. And I think that's honestly what I would attribute to most of my success in the industry, was how much I care about people.
Dude, you could see that everybody that works with you like really loves you. So that's, I wasn't on the music video and people were talking crap about you behind it. Like, everybody really looks up to you. So that's huge. And I think you're right. I think you can absolutely do business in that way. And I think, well, hopefully the world is shifting in that direction. And so, without going into a ton of details, we're talking about obviously Create Nash, your baby, your brainchild, your creation. Just after some partnerships, you ended up moving on from that. What did you do after?
So afterwards, we kind of had a tough little legal battle of some things, and after I was able to kind of make my way out of that, I pretty much just went back to work in the industry as Austin Peckham, the director. And kind of like I said a little bit ago, the name Create Nash was awesome because it was a buzzword, but I quickly learned that people worked with us because of the experience they had and me and what I provided to people. And that was a really cool feeling because I was able to, for our family and for our livelihood, was able to get through a tough situation and hit the ground running again because people believed in me,
Right.
not a name.
Gotcha. Now you went into kind of solo work, right? Like directing video commercials at all, or just strictly music videos?
I did a few commercials, but mainly music videos. And those are just really just solicits from different record labels in town that I've built connections with at this point.
Awesome. So talk to me about your big transition, because as soon as we get to where you are right now, I want to unpackage a little bit of what you and your wife have done overall over the past 4 years and how that relates into the people listening today and how they can make drastic changes with some focus and some energy and some work ethic, and just your advice to all of the people listening on based on the journey that you've been over the last 4 years, what you would share with them. So you have a great thing going. And, as far I didn't know until 20 minutes ago before we started this, that you're making this change, but you have a great thing going. People are reaching out to you all. You're turning down musicians. You're accepting the ones that you want. Is that right? Like they reach out, they give you a budget and you just shoot. And it's your idea. You have creative control over all of it. Correct?
So that's typically how it kind of rolls out is I get sent a song and I get to write what I think the video should look like, just completely out of left field, and don't get any guidance or anything. And they just expect someone to write a treatment or a proposal for the music video, and then it gets approved, and then you get a budget approved, and you go to work. But it like the Kane video that you were on was one where I had a tiny little bit of input from the band, but that was one of those videos where I looked back and was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this went from my brain to being an actual physical thing out in the
Yeah.
world people watch. Like it's one of the most surreal feelings.
I mean, can you imagine what Christopher Nolan feels like when
Yeah.
like Batman comes out or Interstellar? like I could just, it went from my brain to this. I mean, it's insane. This is why I really look up to creatives.
I can't believe I wrote that Batman was going to swing from a giant building through a window and a bomb would go off and he would jump out of another window with a girl in his hands. And then and it's like, but those guys are crazy because they can literally think of anything that they want to happen and
make it happen. Unlimited budget at that point. Absolutely. So tell me about the transition that you're making right now and why. Why are you choosing to do what you're doing? And what are you doing?
So it kind of goes back a little bit to what I said about why I even moved to Nashville. I moved to Nashville because I told my mom right before I graduated that it was the only time in my life that I could do something like this and not really have any serious repercussions or anything.
Yep.
And I have spent, ever since the business divorce and everything, I've been in a weird spot of not being super passionate. And I realized over the last month that I'm a person that is driven solely by passion. I hated school. I didn't like certain jobs that I did to make money. I finally found a degree that I loved because I was in bodybuilding. I was teaching people nutrition and coaching competitors in college. So I was passionate about that. I became incredibly passionate about videos. And I've recently kind of reignited a flame that I spent my whole life building, and it's golf. And I've kind of come to the same conclusion that there's never going to be a better time in my life to pursue this. So Emily and I have had a lot of conversations and discussions, and I'm going to be practicing and hopefully making it onto at least the Corn Ferry, which is like the minor league of the PGA Tour, or the actual PGA Tour. So I'm working to play professional golf, and amongst that, also helping Emily build her real estate empire as I can. But that's kind of the transition.
Yeah. How's Emily's still crushing it? I'm assuming, right? She's getting, every day I see her getting written up for something, Forbes. It's 30 under 30. I mean, I'm really proud of you guys. But you said something that I think was really important just now, is just following that passion. And I think a lot of people are chasing the money, and very few people are really following their passion. And it seems that you have, like, I imagine it being harder for you than a lot of people because you're really great at multiple things and you actually have different passions. And so how did you land on this being the one? Is it just the timing in your life, being 27, looking at how many years you have left to really pursue something like a sport, and knowing that you can always fall back on film, and the fact that you and your wife have done well and you guys live, frugally, which, I know that, you're like us, we're not big spenders we love experiences, but things don't mean much to us. So is that kind of like what you came to the conclusion of, that it's now or never?
Yeah. I mean, at 27 with no kids, there's, and being very financially secure, there's really there's never been a better time for me to kind of take a step away and pursue this, because you add children, and we've got goals that we want to achieve, and they're kind of at the 35 to 40-year-old mark. And we've learned over the last, really, you said 4 years, but our lives have went from 0 to 100 in 2 years. So what that showed us is you can literally be Gary Keller, the CEO of Keller Williams, says you're 5 years away from being where you want to be at any time. But I mean, we've gone to a completely different world in 2 years. So that has given us the confidence too, to say, like, go take this risk and try it, because you're literally only 2 years away.
Yeah.
From being back to a comfortable space, or maybe even 5 years, but even 5 years is like nothing.
Yeah, no, it's so true. So do you mind, and I don't want to pry, but do you mind sharing, like, what have you guys done in 2 years? Like, what's like, you don't have to say what your net worth is or anything, but like, you guys own some things, you guys have done well. Like, what's kind of like your life right now that allows you to be able to do that? Is it, because you may not need a lot to live on. So for somebody listening, they may not know if it's just $3,000 a month or what. Like, what's that picture look like?
So, Emily has obviously been very successful, and we've built a shed bar and have spent some, I guess you could say, stupid money here and there, but we do live very, maybe not very frugally, but definitely frugally. We save and are very conscious of where our money is going. We were very fortunate to purchase. We bought our first home last year, as well as 3 other rental properties last year as well. So we bought four properties last year in 2019, and basically I still carry a couple retainer clients that are really good relationships that I really help them. They really help me. It kind of keeps consistent money coming. And it's not a huge commitment that I can't kind of keep it rolling. So we got that. Our investment properties pay for our mortgage for our own home. They pay for probably our groceries and all of our utilities. And it's kind of like it's wild. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for just like 5 seconds, but you're back.
Okay. I just got like an internet warning. It's really wild, because the way that we've purchased properties is that we put 25% down to buy the investment property, and then we either renovate it or don't renovate it, whatever the home calls for. But spending a lot of cash can be scary. But what we found is, like, it's insane to know that, because we double our mortgage, we double our mortgage on every rental investment that we have. So we're getting this passive income, and it's basically forever. And like putting that money into these homes now it's completely changed.
Yeah.
Already.
It's funny, man. Every time I get on a flight and like I'm either taking off or landing, and you see, like, when you're up in the sky, like everything is in like squares, right? And I just think how big the world is. And like when we're on our way landing, I'm just like, man, if I just owned that little fucking square right there, I would be like worth hundreds of millions of. I just don't need it all. I just need that little bitty square, and I am so set. And it's just like that's so cool. So I want to finish up by getting to the lesson here. And the lesson here is that you're pursuing your passion while figuring out what it is that you're meant to do, which is awesome. And you and your wife, obviously having a supportive significant other is a big key in all of this, I would say. But you guys have built yourselves to a point in 2 years where you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And so for those listening that they are you in 2017, like, what do you say to them? What's the first thing that you would recommend that they do? Find something they can get good at, find their passion. Like, what do you say to that person?
I would start with just like even just writing down the things that you would love to do. Like, here's what blows my mind. Like, I'm living proof that you can, I hate to say literally over and over again, but you can literally do anything that you want to do. Like, you might not be able to go just be a doctor or be a astronaut or whatever, like really specialty stuff, but like money is so easy to make. And that's, like you said it perfectly, like chasing money doesn't do anything for you. You're probably going to start some half-assed business that sucks because you only care about making money.
Yep.
But if you find the things that you're passionate about and then get really good at that thing, then you can most likely turn it into something that's lucrative. And the more important than money is just waking up and being happy about what you're doing. Like, we took our dogs to the creek this afternoon, and we got back here at like 1:45, and we're sitting there eating lunch, and I was just like, babe, can you believe that, like, we're just sitting here at 1:45 and we just took our dogs to the creek and it's Thursday?
That's absolutely. I did a solo podcast a week and a half ago. I released it. And it's the same that, our journey, mine and Kat's journey has been very similar, right? Like, I went through a divorce, I started all over again. She got pregnant, she left finance. So we started over basically when we were your neighbors. And, we've had a very similar path, just doing different things. And, my big takeaway that I want to share with everybody is just, when you realize that when you get good at something, the world will pay for that thing. And it doesn't matter what it is, because there's so many things that you can do. And there's so many things that are needed that if you could just get good, focus for even 6 months, you'll be better than 90% of the people in the world at that thing, because most people are either doing other things or they're doing 100 things all at once. So they never master anything. And so mastery is like the new gold today, like just being good. You don't even have to be the best, just being good at something. And then the other big lesson that I've really learned that I just want to piggyback off of what you're saying is just the power of having an asset that's generating money that's not tied to your efforts. It's just like when I realized that I'm a human, I only have so many hours in a day, but a rental property doesn't need to sleep. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to eat. It doesn't need any of these things. It's like the more assets you can have producing income, that frees up your life and your time to pursue things like golf and music. I mean, it's just like, man, how do we get people to realize this?
And that is like 1,000,000,000,000% true. And like, obviously right now in the real estate market, buying a rental property is harder than it's ever been. But I just wanted to share, like, one of the craziest things that happened to us is that we bought these properties in 2019, right before the market went absolutely berserk. We've gained $100,000 in the house that's sitting in front of me. We've gained $75,000 on the house that's sitting 3 streets down from me, $80,000 from the one a street down from me, and like another $60,000 at the one in Shelbyville. And it's like, on top of like real estate just being the best vessel that you could ever put money into, it's like if you see people doing it just like normal people, there's no reason that Joe listening here or whoever can't start saving for their first investment property.
That's exactly it. And you're 27. You and your wife are in their 20s. You guys are young and you can do it. It's just like, man, don't figure it out when you're in your 30s or 40s. It's like, start Like, pay attention. Man, I had a podcast interview a couple days ago, and you actually should listen to this one, because the guy was saying why so many people go through, like especially guys go through these midlife crises in their mid 20s to early 30s.
Yeah.
And it's like, has to do with how your brain is. It's like, you're I don't know. I have to re-listen to it. He uses a lot of scientific terms, but it's so common, and he coaches a lot of people through that and why it's very natural. But it's goes to show, man, it's like, wow, 2 years. This is why I wanted to have you on today, because you're a perfect example that anything is possible, that if you're prepared, there's always going to be good markets, bad markets. But, the key is being prepared so that when you have that downturn, you can take advantage of it and crush it on the upturn. Like,
Yeah, and I would encourage anyone, because I did this a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. I would encourage anyone that's like feeling stuck or shitty about where they are in life. Google Elon Musk and Google Bill Gates and Google Jeff Bezos and Google the KFC dude. He started KFC at like 68 years old. Like, it's just proof that you can make a decision today to change your life, and in a few years be in a completely different place.
Yep. Ray Kroc, he was selling milkshake machines to restaurants in his 50s, listening to positive self-talk every single day, and then created McDonald's. And just like, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's awesome. So as we finish up, man, is there anything that you want to leave everybody with? I mean, you said a lot, it may not even be necessary, but to those listening, what would be like your closing thoughts on that they could take away from this interview and be inspired to go do something and take action?
I think my only closing thought would be that our lives are so short, and I'm a man that believes in Christ and in heaven, and I know where I'm going after I leave this earth, but that doesn't change what I have here. And literally, like, you hear story after story of people being in their 60s and 70s and wishing that they could have done this and that, and wish that they would have done things that they had always wanted to do. And like life is so precious that it makes no sense to be spending it miserable and to be spending it mediocrely, if that's even a word.
No, it is. And that brings me to another thing too, that you just knowing you, I wanted to make sure everybody knows it's okay to have periods of your life where you're really fucking confused and you're lost and you're trying to figure out, because I know I've been there many times. I know that you've been there. We've had conversations,
and you're depressed and you're anxious.
Yeah. I don't want anybody listening to think, oh, John and Austin got this whole life thing figured out. I mean, there's periods of time where I think things make more sense than other periods of time. And then you get to a point and you're like, man, I don't know, am I doing the right thing? And we've all been there. I mean, I know, like, I've had conversations with you where, to those listening, they're like, man, Austin, just everything he touches turns to gold. But man, I've been there and I've had the conversation with you where you're like, I'm making decent money, but I hate what I'm doing and I don't like it. And I remember before, the whole fallout from the business that you had, you're just like mentally wore out from the conversations and the animosity that was about to happen. And, it's just like, nobody has it all figured out, but you get on the other side of things and you get to a place where things are working and you can share those things with people and you can say, hey, look, I don't have it all figured out, but I know that if you do this in 2 years, you really can at least be in a point in your life where you have the ability to go play golf and pursue that and do that. And everything's going to be just fine. And so I just, yeah, man, this was great interview. I think you hit a lot of things home for a lot of people. My final thing is where can people, I mean, you guys are kind of private people, but where can people follow you?
Stuff about our dogs and
okay, there you go.
We post the home renovations and stuff like that if people are interested or ever want to, like, I'm a complete open book when it comes to like real estate investing and like how we got into it and I'll share anything and everything that anyone wants to know. So, which is funny, we just put ourselves on a budget. So I deleted my G Suite. So I no longer have my email. So
don't email you.
The easiest way I think would just be my Instagram, which is at Austin Peckham.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes. Also,
and there's a contact button on my Instagram page.
Perfect. Man, you guys are super approachable. Thank you so much. I'll definitely have to have your wife on this podcast one day. She brings a completely different dynamic to it. And, but she's a little busy right now with all the things she has going on. I saw her writing an offer or something in the car with a dog in her lap. So yeah, we'll save that to when things calm down. But man, thank you so much for being on here today, sharing some great insight. Really appreciate it. I hope to have you guys both as a couple back on one day soon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.